He was about to shoot one of the biggest scenes of his career. Cameras ready, crew waiting, millions of dollars on the line. Then suddenly, Keanu Reeves stood up, walked off the set, got his car, and disappeared. No explanation, no statement, no warning. Hollywood was shocked. But the real reason he left had nothing to do with fame and everything to do with something money can't buy. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you never miss an update. Now let's dive into what really happened. Nobody saw it coming. The cameras were already in position. Lights were set perfectly. Microphones hung silently above the scene. Dozens of crew members moved with focused energy, each person doing their job like clockwork. This wasn't just another shoot. It was one of the most important scenes of the entire film. And at the center of it all was supposed to be Keanu Reeves. The director stood near the monitor, glancing at his watch again and again. Assistant directors whispered into headsets. A production assistant jogged across the set, asking if anyone had seen him. "At least 5 more minutes," someone said, trying to stay calm. But then someone noticed something strange. His chair, the one with his name printed clearly on the back. It was empty. At first, no one panicked. Maybe he stepped out for air. Maybe a quick phone call. That happens all the time on sets. But then another detail surfaced. His phone wasn't on the table. His coffee cup was gone. His jacket wasn't hanging where it had been. A security staff member quietly confirmed something that made the air feel heavier. His car had just left the parking lot. No announcement. No conversation with the director. No message to the team. He had simply gone. On a film set, time is money. Every minute of delay can cost thousands. People began to murmur. Confusion spread first, then frustration. Is this a misunderstanding? Was there an emergency? Did something happen? Some thought it might be a scheduling issue. Others wondered if it was a last-minute change. A few even assumed it had to be a joke. But those who had worked with him before didn't speak. They just looked concerned. Because Keanu Reeves had a reputation. Not for drama, not for ego, but for respect. He was known as the kind of actor who stayed late, thanked crew members, and treated everyone equally. This didn't fit. This wasn't normal. And deep down, the people who truly knew him felt one thing more than anything else. Worry. Because if Keanu Reeves walked away without a word, the reason had to be bigger than Hollywood. And they were right. Just 1 hour earlier, everything had felt normal. Keanu Reeves was sitting quietly inside his trailer, away from the noise of the set. The script rested in his hands, pages slightly bent from use. Outside, people rushed around, adjusting lights and checking equipment. Inside, it was peaceful. He looked the same as always, calm, grounded, focused on his work. No sign that anything unusual was about to happen. Then his phone rang. He didn't rush to answer. On set, calls usually came from assistants, agents, or production staff. Work-related, routine. But when he looked at the screen, he paused. It wasn't his agent. It wasn't the director. It wasn't anyone from the film. It was an old number, one he hadn't seen in years. For a moment, he just stared at it. Then he answered, "Hello?" There was a short silence. Then a voice came through, weak, slow, and slightly shaky. The kind of voice that carried years inside it, but it was familiar. "Hey, kid." Keanu's expression changed instantly. The man on the other side was Daniel. Long before movie premieres, before fame, before red carpets, when Keanu was just a young man trying to survive in a big city, he had once walked into a small roadside cafe with barely enough money for food. Daniel had been sitting at the next table. He noticed the situation without being told. Quietly, he paid for Keanu's meal. But what stayed with Keanu wasn't just the food. It was the conversation. Daniel had talked with him for hours that day. About life. About patience. About staying kind even when things are hard. He told him success means nothing if you lose your heart along the way. Those words had stayed with Keanu through every stage of his journey. And now, that same voice sounded tired. "I'm at the hospital," Daniel said softly. "Doctors say I don't have much time." Keanu didn't speak. He couldn't. Daniel explained that he was alone. No family nearby. No visitors. But in his wallet, he had kept an old contact card with Keanu's number written on it. For years. He had asked a nurse to help him make the call. "I just wanted to see you one last time." And in that quiet trailer, surrounded by movie scripts and studio lights, everything suddenly felt small. Keanu sat still for a moment after the call ended. The trailer suddenly felt different. Smaller, quieter, heavy. He slowly looked around him. On one side, large posters from past films were pinned to the walls, reminders of success, fame, and years of hard work. On the table lay expensive costumes prepared for the scene. A printed schedule showed bookings for months ahead, interviews, flights, and appearances. Everything around him represented the life he had built. Outside the trailer, the movie set was alive. Hundreds of people were working, lighting teams, camera operators, makeup artists, assistants. A production worth millions depended on him stepping out that door and saying his lines. One person, so much responsibility. But somewhere across the city, in a quiet hospital room, an old man lay in a bed with only hours left. No audience, no spotlight, no one waiting outside the door. Just silence and a final wish. No cameras would record that moment. No news headlines would praise it. No awards would be handed out. It would simply be a goodbye between two human beings. Keanu closed his eyes briefly, not in confusion, but in understanding. Life had just placed two paths in front of him. One led to professional duty, expectations, and public success. The other led to gratitude, memory, and something deeply personal. He didn't make a dramatic announcement. He didn't call a meeting. He didn't ask, "Is it okay if I go?" Because some decisions don't come from a mind. They come from the heart. He stood up quietly, picked up his jacket, opened the trailer door, and walked past crew members who assumed he was heading to set. No one stopped him. No one knew. Minutes later, he was in his car, engine starting, driving away from the studio. That was the moment people later described as him walking away without explaining anything. But for Keanu, there was nothing to explain. Some debts in life cannot be repaid with money, fame, or success. They are repaid by showing up when it matters most. The hospital room was quiet, too quiet for the world outside. Machines hummed and beeped softly, keeping track of every fragile heartbeat. Sunlight filtered gently through the blinds, painting warm lines across the white walls. There were no flowers, no cards, no visitors, just a small bed, a few monitors, and a man lying in it. That man was Daniel. He had been waiting, not for fame, not for money, not for applause, just for a simple human moment that would last a lifetime. Then the door opened quietly. No fanfare, no cameras, no headlines, just a figure stepping in carefully, almost reverently. Keanu Reeves. Daniel looked up, and for the first time in days, a smile spread across his face. Not because Keanu was a movie star, or because the world knew him, but because he recognized the same kind, humble young man he had met years ago in a small roadside cafe. A man who had never forgotten a simple act of kindness. Keanu walked slowly to his side, pulled up a chair, and sat down. For hours they talked. Not about scripts, not about fame, not about awards. They talked about life, about struggles, failures, and victories that no camera had ever captured. About the power of small gestures, how one kind word or act could ripple across years, shaping someone's life in ways neither could fully explain. Daniel reached out and took Keanu's hand. "I always knew you'd become someone big," he said softly. "But I'm glad you stayed good." Keanu squeezed his hand back. No words could express what this moment meant to him. No press, no photographs, no social media post would ever capture it. It was a quiet, human connection, pure and unfiltered. And in that peaceful hospital room, time seemed to slow. Two lives, so far apart yet connected by gratitude, kindness, and memory, shared one final meaningful moment. That night, Daniel passed away peacefully, and Keanu was there, fully present, quietly honoring a man who had changed his life with a single act of kindness so many years ago. No cameras, no headlines, no awards, just humanity. This was a side of the world that most would never see, but it's the side that truly defines a person. The next morning, the media was louder than ever. Headlines screamed across newspapers and websites. Unprofessional, difficult star, walked off set without warning. Fans are confused. Crew members whispered. Social media exploded with speculation. People debated endlessly. Why would a top actor simply leave one of the biggest scenes of the year? Was it ego, a tantrum, or something worse? But the truth remained hidden until weeks later, when a nurse from the hospital quietly shared the story. She didn't do it for fame. She didn't do it for attention. She shared it because she had witnessed something rare, something real. She had seen a man, one of the most famous actors in the world, sit beside a dying man with no cameras, no press, no spotlight, just as a friend, not as a celebrity, not as a public figure, just as a human being. When the story finally reached the public, the noise faded. Headlines about unprofessional behavior no longer mattered. People began to understand that sometimes the strongest actions are the quietest. Sometimes the most meaningful moments happen far from the cameras, far from applause, far from recognition. Keanu Reeves didn't explain his absence that day. He didn't need to. No interview could capture what he had done. No press release could reflect the depth of gratitude, respect, and humanity that guided his choice. His actions spoke louder than any words ever could. And that's why people admire him so deeply. Not just because he's a brilliant actor, but because when life placed a choice before him, between fame, money, and schedule, or kindness, presence, and humanity, he didn't hesitate. He chose the human moment. For all of us, this story is a reminder. The world may measure success by awards, recognition, fame, but the heart measures it by how we show up for people when it truly matters, by the quiet moments, the selfless gestures, and the decisions made without expectation of notice. Keanu's walk away from the spotlight, that day wasn't about disappearing. It was about standing for something far greater than himself, loyalty, gratitude, and the power of human connection. Sometimes, being great isn't about what the world sees. It's about what you do when nobody is watching.